I was doing a podcast with Misha Tate. Misha Tate was
Who is that?
a bantam. She was a bantamweight UFC champion.
Okay.
So she's a phenomenal fighter. She's still fighting. Like 2 kids. She's still fighting.
I hate that so much.
Oh my gosh.
I hate it. Do you hate that?
What,
to see women in a ring beating the shit out of each other and we clap and celebrate it like this could possibly be a good thing?
Here's what it is. Like I like UFC.
Yeah.
I like UFC. I have a hard time watching women fight.
Right. And I think you're right to. And I think any pressure you feel to disagree with it is coming from the outside.
Here's where I'll disagree.
All right.
Here's where I'll disagree. I do believe that within society, men should take on the primary responsible for protection and provision. I've also been to societies where women had to fight. And so I realize it's sport. I realize it's different. I'm not telling you to change what you think about this.
I think I disagree with UFC in general, which is influencing how I feel about women fighting.
Sure.
So if I'm against men beating the shit out of each other for sport and money and fame, I don't think those are legitimate reasons to inflict serious physical pain upon another person. I think there can be legitimate reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
If I'm against that, I'm certainly against these beautiful women who have children and ought to nurture them to be punched in the face. I just think it's disgusting.
I asked Misha what that was like. Her father was a Green Beret.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't imagine watching my daughter do it. And she was going through and explaining. She's got an interesting story. And I really appreciate Misha. I think Misha is an incredible person.
Awesome. Sorry, continue.
The point of what I wanted to bring up is that in the middle of me talking about like husbands this and husband that, and she looks at me and the first time I'd ever been asked this on a podcast, she goes, "But what do men need?" And I was like,
your shoulders dropped.
I was just like,
breath.
Thank you for asking that, because we don't get asked it anymore. It's as if what we need doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Now, thankfully, my wife's never been that way, but culturally, that is very much the case. And whenever men talk about what they need, it's like, oh, boo-hoo. And I said, look, I think there's, and this is tying into what we were talking about before. I said, look, I think there's, if I had to narrow it down, because I wasn't expecting the question, there's 4 things. We want to be respected. And what respect to us means is that we are admired for our character and our capabilities, like our competence. That's what we're admired for. We want to be appreciated. And what appreciated means is acknowledgement for the sacrifices that we make to protect and provide. When my wife looks at me and says, oh man, when my wife looks at me and says, you make me feel safe. I can go a year. On that compliment, right? I can go a year on that compliment. So we want to be desired. And desired doesn't just mean you're willing, right? Desired means you're excited about it. And because women, honest talk here, because women are the gatekeepers for sex, when you have a wife that takes that part of your marriage seriously, not just as something that's done, but seriously, she takes ownership of it. Oh my gosh. Like we just feel incredibly desired. We just feel like, our wife loves us. Our wife wants us. Like that's incredible to us. I said, and the final thing is love. We want to be loved. I mean, scripture talks about, wives respect your husbands and men love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life for it. Love for a man. I said, love for a man is really, I was thinking about this. It's really tied to loyalty. When we know, like we are so keyed in to see our value on what we can provide. But if you want to make a man feel loved, it's him knowing that you will stick with us even when it gets bad. Because if I'm protecting, if I'm providing, if I'm meeting your emotional needs, your physical needs, and I'm doing all those stuff, okay, you love me. But what happens if something happened and I couldn't? Not I was lazy, not I was unfaithful. What happened if I get in a car accident, I get shot overseas, when you know your wife would be there with you and still love you and be proud of you, oh man, you feel loved. You make a man. And I always say this, I know not every man is worth the effort, but when you find a good one and you make him feel respected, appreciated, desired, and loved, that man won't just die for you. That man will spend a good part of his life trying to make your life everything you want it to be. And he will thank you for the privilege of it. So no, I'm there with you, man. When my wife lets me know what I can
I love that you came up with those 4 things on the spot with that woman.
Well,
That's incredible.
I think I came up with 3, and I had to think about it later. I got to go back and watch the interview because I was pretty much on that, but I was thinking about like, how do I, especially when I do short form content, it's like, man, how do I pack this into 90 seconds? But yeah, I really started. Somebody went into the comments. They said the last thing I would say is peace. We do like it when a wife provides peace within the household. I think that's true. I think that's true. I know that when we started having kids, and my wife really took over management of the home. What I always tell people is that wasn't daycare and facilities management. My wife manufactured and maintained an entire environment. And she created an environment so wonderful. I would fight. I'd give anything to protect it.
I know it's cliche, but she made a house a home.
Yeah. She created an environment that I wanted to dedicate my life to protecting. Protecting and providing for. And probably even more incredible is that if you ask, I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old, you ask any of them, what do you want to do? They have certain professional goals and whatnot, but almost immediately out of their mouth, they want to get married and they want to have kids.
It's because they see the joy of your wife.
Because she created an environment they want to replicate for their own families.
My older son said to my youngest daughter recently, "You'd make a great flight attendant." And out of nowhere, she's like, "No way, I'm going to be too busy having babies." Like, we didn't have to coach her to say that. No one guilted her into saying that. It's just this deep desire of her heart. That's really beautiful. Yeah, it's funny. My wife was on a week retreat recently, and my kids, I mean, they survived.
Yeah.
But they barely ate. I was just going by Kroger and buying them trays of sushi. Like, is that enough? What else do you need? I don't know.
What do kids like? Food? You like food?
You want that? I need to have my wife come back, and it's like, thank goodness. You know, like, we managed, but it's better with you here.
Yeah.
We're blessed, man. I don't know. I am very grateful for my wife. This is something I'm very grateful. She's a very good woman. I wrote to some people in Australia recently, and they were like, I don't know if America's ever been great to begin with. So not all Australians think this, but this one. So I sent them like a long list of all the inventions that they can be thankful for, which came from America. And then lastly, I'm like, Cameron Mader, my wife, you know, you guys gave me her. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. That's good. What advice do you have? I mean, I guess you've already said it, but you know, it's funny. Like when I all those things about being very specific about what you want, how helpful that is, and if you can't agree, then you've just made a very good friend. I think that's excellent advice. I just don't know if I just fell so hard for her. I just thought she was the best, and so by that point, I was all in.
Well, but here's the great part, right? Is the values are non-negotiable. That's what I would say. The faith was non-negotiable. I was not going to marry a non-Christian. I just wasn't, because it wouldn't have been good for either of us. I'm not going to be unequally yoked, right? So I'm going to marry a Christian. That's everything
true.
Else.
That's true. There was definitely non-negotiables. If things that have happened, but
most everything else was not a deal breaker. It was a preference. But the problem is that we either treat preferences like deal breakers, or
they don't matter.
We treat them like they don't exist. And you know, I'll give you an example of this. And this will, whenever I talk about this, half the audience loves the first part almost as much as they hate the second part.
Let's do it.
So talking to men about what's your responsibility as a husband and whatnot. And one of the things I talk about is I said, you know, the dad bod is not a thing. It's just not. You have an obligation to stay fit and healthy for your wife. And they're like, well, you know, I'm like, well, you know, I'm not saying you got to be a bodybuilder. I'm not saying you got to be, you know, an MMA. I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying you've got to be Adonis. I'm not saying any of that. What I'm saying is that your job is to protect and provide. And oh, by the way, you're the last guy on the planet she gets to sleep with. Like, you're it. So stay fit for your wife. Don't do, you don't have to be doing unreasonable things, but do reasonable things to stay fit and stay healthy for your wife. And the way I put it is this, because it's like, we always get into the discussion of, well, shouldn't they just love me? Yes. When you make a commitment you love that person for life. You're obligated at this point. You've made a choice. Like, you love that person for life. And as long as the fundamentals are correct, right? Like, we're talking about character and all this would be good. Yeah. But there's two versions of you. There's a version of you that is a really good person, but you're not everything you could be in the various areas. And part of that's fitness. Part of that might be intellect, right? There's things that you can improve. And then there's another version of you where you are staying fit. You are staying up on reading and developing your mind and things like that. It is not unreasonable for your wife to prefer this version. Now, she's going to stick with you either way, right?
Yeah.
She loves you. She loves you, and she fundamentally loves you, and that doesn't change, right? But is it not reasonable for her to prefer the reasonable version of you that is fully capable of achieving these things? Yeah. Good. Then go achieve those things, man. Go achieve those things, because you're going to be better for it. She's going to be happier. You're going to be happier. You're going to be able to protect and provide better. So go do it, right? Go do it. Wives, same thing, right? That's the part where I say, everybody loves the wives love it when I talk about, man, do this.
Yeah.
And the guys are like, why are we always getting beat up on? And then I'm like, and wives do the same thing. It's like, well, now we're, no. There's again, nothing, and I mean this very sincerely, nothing can happen to my wife, nothing can do where it will fundamentally change the fact that I love her, I'm attracted to her, and I'm with her for life. That's it. That's it. There's no, it's not a possibility. People, well, what about that? It isn't a possibility. Why? Because I've decided it isn't. Isn't it an enormous amount of power?
Yeah.
We act like all these things just happen to us. This is an area of my life. Things don't just happen. I've made a decision. I love this woman. I'm attracted to this woman. I desire this woman. And it's this woman to the exclusion of all others forever, the end, period. That's it. So that's a wonderful thing. And she's done the same for me. But I know I can be better in certain areas. That's not a dig on me. That's an opportunity. That's another goal I get to fight for. And it's another thing I get to achieve. That's another thing I get to do that she gets to be proud of and appreciate and get to have. So go do it. It's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Because we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to be the idealized version, but we're always made better for seeking it out, especially through our relationship with God.
Yeah.
And so,
no, 100%. I think there's two reasons that women react negatively to that. One is from feminism that tells women that their husbands should have no requirements of them, which is evil. Piss off feminism. The other, I think, is more legitimate, whereas I speak to a lot of women who grow up with eating disorders, or they view their bodies in certain ways. They're the ones who have to give birth, not you and me.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of things that take place after that. But no, 100%. I want to tell you about a course that I have created for men to overcome pornography. It is called strive21.com/Matt. You go there right now, or if you text STRIVE to 66866, we'll send you the link. It's 100% free, and it's a course I've created to help men, to give them the tools to overcome pornography. Usually men know that porn is wrong. They don't need me or you to convince them that it's wrong. What they need is a battle plan to get out. And so I've distilled all that I've learned over the last 15 or so years as I've been talking and writing on this topic into this one course. Think of it as if you and I could have a coffee over the next 21 days and I would kind of guide you along this journey. That's basically what this is. It's incredibly well produced. We had a whole camera crew come and film this. And I think it'll be a real help to you. And it's also not an isolated course that you go through on your own, because literally tens of thousands of men have now gone through this course. And as you go through the different videos, there's comments from men all around the world encouraging each other, offering to be each other's accountability partners and things like that. Strive21, that's strive21.com/Matt, or as I say, text STRIVE to 66866 to get started today. You won't regret it.